Today, I want to rank all of the Best Picture nominees. Honestly, this is the first year where I think every single nomination is 100% deserved. Because even if I don't think every single film is perfect, I at least understand the appeal of them all. And that is not something we can say about every year of the Oscars. Anyways, the contenders are on screen, but in 10th place for me is The Secret Agent at a 6.5 out of 10. My favorite thing about this film is Wagner Moura's performance. He is absolutely phenomenal, but my least favorite thing about this film is technically the runtime of it, but just overall the storytelling. I think it's a little bit too disjointed for me. But I also understand the storytelling appeal of it and why they did it and why the ending feels not ambiguous necessarily, but like it doesn't have some sort of big payoff. All of these things I think are so understanding to the thematic nature of Brazil's dictatorship and how people just go missing. You don't get an ending. And I love that. And the way that that is represented in this film is so heartbreaking. But again, that very long runtime, in addition to the storytelling, just never really kept me personally engaged. In 9th place for me is Sentimental Value at a 7.5 out of 10. I'm not really as high on this film as other people are, but my favorite thing about this film is every single performance. And obviously it got nominated across the board. It got doubles in some categories. I just think this is such a great familial film, and the way that all of the dynamics are explored are so well done. My only problem with this film is that I just personally could never connect to it. I don't know if it was the situation I watched the film in, or if it was just the fact that a lot of the way that the story was told to me, I just didn't necessarily connect with the characters. I didn't find any singular character to be super compelling other than Elle Fanning's character, but I will say I also think this is one of the most fascinating films about filmmaking because it puts family and art into the same film, which I just feel like I don't really see very often. But the way that this film is shot, I think kept me out of the family a little too much, in a good way, I guess. It helped me understand their situation better, but again, it kept me just slightly too disconnected. In 8th place for me is Train Dreams at a 7.5 out of 10. I'm the type of guy that really gets existential with films, especially those about fatherhood, and this film is exactly that. It's my cup of tea because it's so simple in its storytelling, but it's so effective. My one gripe before I started glazing this film is that I think technically it is really weird. It's shot in like a very high to normal frame rate, but it just looks like kind of like it's shot on film color grading wise, and I just don't think that the tones really match each other on a technical level. And then on top of that, I think it can be a little bit shallow if you're not completely invested in Joel Edgerton's character's family, and they don't do much to push that, especially in the second half of the film, in my opinion. You might be asking, why did I give the film a 7.5 out of 10 if I really loved it? It's just because the film hasn't aged at all for me. Like, I have not thought about this film since I saw it at TIFF, but I cannot get over sitting in the theater and watching this film end and how that just made me feel. I think Carrie Condon's presence in this film is so amazing, and just the stuff that Joel Edgerton goes through in this movie just makes you appreciate life. The most underrated performance of this film is Felicity Jones. She is doing something that feels so subtle, but just loving and caring. I really do love every single piece of this movie. I just think at times it might be too simple, and I think that's why I don't think about the film very often, even though at the very end of the film, I was rethinking my entire life. In 7th place for me is One Battle After Another at an 8.5 out of 10. I know I'm not nearly as high on this film as most of the world is, but I still do think it is an absolutely generational piece of art in terms of the commentary that it's delivering about our time in the past and really the future. It's not a 5 out of 5 masterclass in my opinion. I think there are a couple of flaws. Primarily, I don't really find the first 30 minutes to be very interesting, and also the second time around, I didn't find Lockjaw to be as interesting of a villain, but Sean Penn is doing a great job. But that aside, I think almost every single acting nomination is deserved here, and I also think that Chase Infinity should have gotten nominated. My favorite thing about this film is easily just the evolution of it. I think it is consistently getting better and better throughout the runtime. My favorite scene is the chase near the middle of the film, but I'm talking about on a political and commentary level. It feels like it's always trying to say something more and more. Even though I didn't feel very emotional towards any of the characters, I do think all the dynamics are really well executed. It's one of the best, like, sets of cast that we have this year, 100%. I want to get fired in the comments for that, but yeah, I don't know. I like the movie. I'm just not as high on it as 99.9% of the people that watched it. In sixth place for me is Frankenstein at a 9 out of 10. I cannot believe this film is number 6 on my list because I absolutely loved it, and that just shows how stacked this entire lineup is. Frankenstein is one of my top 15 favorite out of the 150 plus 2025 films I saw. I think this film is nearly perfect. I think Jacob Elordi deserves to win Best Supporting Actor. I think all the other performances are great, don't get me wrong, but he is doing something completely different on a body level, but also just on a mental level of trying to understand this kind of newborn creature exploring and kind of being forced into this world. I was so excited for this film the second it got announced, and Guillermo del Toro was the perfect person. I do think that it feels a little bit Netflixy at times with the little pan zoom-ins, but I think the sets are beautiful. I think the imagery is gorgeous, especially the wintertime stuff. I love that. I will say I don't really like how the story is told. I get it. It's very similar to the novel, but I don't think that it covers enough of what the novel does in the latter half for it to actually warrant so much time based in Victor's character in the first half. My favorite sequence of the entire film is when the creature and the blind man are kind of bonding and creating a relationship, and how we see that recontextualized the entire film before this. In fifth place for me is Hamnet at a 9 out of 10. When I originally saw this film, I thought it was all of the festival buzz. I saw it at TIFF in a press room full of everyone crying through the credits. So before I made my top 10 films of 2025 video, I went and rewatched this film. It was a Monday night at 10 p.m. and I was still absolutely torn apart by this movie. It is such a brilliant look into grief through art and through family. I just didn't expect it to hold up as well as it did. I'm surprised Paul Mescal didn't get a nomination. I'm not saying it was 100% deserved, but the one that we all thought would get one, and what I think will win, Jessie Buckley is obviously at the forefront here, and she's absolutely phenomenal, giving one of the best actress performances of the decade. I also think technically this film is an absolute beast, something that I don't think was important in the moment, because the first time I saw it, I was just bawling my eyes out. But as I sat with the film more, and I kind of understood how Chloe Zhao was capturing this world and capturing these characters, the difference between the super wide shots in the forest and the insane close-ups in moments of grief, it just felt like the perfect blend of performance and technical filmmaking. It's like Chloe Zhao had the option for every single scene and just made every single possible correct choice. In fourth place for me is F1 at a 9 out of 10. I know I'm going to catch heat for this because I put Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent, and pretty much every other movie underneath this, and everyone thinks this is going to be the Oscars villain this year. I love F1, but I know I just talked about how deep and dark Hamnet is and how emotionally resonant and destroying Frankenstein is, but I do think F1 works in a similar way for me, where it is about really loving the game, and no matter where you are in life, you kind of are understanding that the game is all you have. I know the film isn't super deep, and it's not technically the most insane film of all time on a composition level, but I do think technically, editing wise, it is one of the best films of the year, and I do think the performances are all great, and I get it, it's a very average blockbuster, but that's kind of all I need sometimes. I appreciate the best of both worlds, but this was no question in this ranking, it was gonna be in my top 5. In third place for me is Bugonia at a 9.5 out of 10. In my opinion, this is the most underrated film of the decade because of how important it is, and I think it's Yorgos's least weird film, but I really do like it because it's just two people talking in a basement and in a house for 98% of the runtime. The film is absolutely beautiful. The lead performances are genuinely perfect. I don't know how Jesse Plemons didn't get nominated, but I'm so happy the score got nominated. It's one of my favorite scores of the decade. It is genuinely, it's haunting, but in a really grand and epic way. I think this is just the perfect commentary all around of our modern day. It's obviously not something as big and grand as One Battle After Another, but it is about the mental aspect of what happens online and how that affects people, and I really love how that's just brought into a Yorgos film. The second place is Sinners at a 9.5 9.5 out of 10, obviously breaking the record for Oscar nominations. Do I think this is better than Oppenheimer? No, I don't, but I still do think every single nomination is valid. It is firing on every single possible cylinder. I think Michael B. Jordan is giving one of the best performances I've seen in a very long time, but really the exploration of Smoke and Stack and how that evolves throughout the film with all of their kind of side piece characters coming into the mix at the juke joint, it all works in a way that evolves perfectly. And I wouldn't really consider this the blockbuster pick because obviously F1 is in there, but also it wasn't a big blockbuster, or at least anticipated to be the second it came out. This was such an unexpected hit, and obviously I'm so happy it performed the way it did. We need more films like this. But my biggest flaw about the film is just that it feels a little too genre ambiguous in the first half, and maybe that's just me who wanted more vampires in the movie. But the second half of this film is nearly perfect. Even though the first half takes a little bit to get going, it's all still thoroughly entertaining at all times. In first place for me, my personal Best Picture winner is Marty Supreme at a 9.5 out of 10. This is one of my favorite films of the decade. It hits me, and I feel like a lot of people my age, all of my friends, so hard through the pursuit of just chasing greatness and wanting to do the thing that you do at its highest possible level. The score, the visuals, technically this is such a well-made film that obviously gets paired together with editing so perfectly. The thing that stuck with me most about this film though was the ending, because I feel like a lot of people have nothing in their consciousness but the ability to want to win. But then sometimes there are things in life that are greater than that, but you don't really know those things until they happen to you. And obviously Marty Mauser experiences those types of things near the end of the film. So I think this is just really the perfect evolution, because as chaotic as it is, I do think not only is it a very funny film, but it pairs it with emotional resonance for people that just want to do something at the highest level possible. But that wraps up my ranking of the 2026 Oscars Best Picture nominees. As always, let me know your ranking in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.